I want to welcome you back to Thrive in the Word. We're so glad that you've joined us today for our study in the book of James. Now, in our last podcast, I said that we were going to get through verse number 26. We just simply didn't get that far. So today we're going to be looking at James, the second chapter, the very last verse of that chapter, verse number 26. So go and get your Bibles. And as you get your Bibles, let me just remind you that if you like what we're doing, hit the like button. If you want to continue listening to our podcast, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and subscribe, and you'll get a notice every time that our podcast comes up and comes available for you to listen to, which, by the way, is every weekday, Monday through Friday. There's a new podcast, and we cover the books of the Bible. We're teaching verse by verse through the book of James right now, and we're in James, the second chapter, verse number 26. Now, we just got done talking about two people. We just got done talking about Abraham and how Abraham was justified not by just his faith, but by his works. And then we just talked about Rahab the harlot. Now, Rahab the harlot, the prostitute, she was first of all a prostitute, not a very good reputation. She was also a Gentile. She was in the city of Jericho, but you know what? Her faith caused her to work, and her works actually caused her to come into relationship with God. You see, at the end, after Jericho had been defeated, Rahab and her family were taken, and they lived amongst the Jewish people. They lived in the blessing of the Jewish people for the rest of their lives. You see, we need to understand it's not just faith that justifies us. It's works. Now, you've heard me say that over and over again. Well, the reason why I'm saying that is because, first of all, it's in James. But second of all, I really believe that it's one of the greatest challenges of New Testament believers today. You see, what people are trying to do is they're trying to say, you know what, you need to take your faith and keep it in your church building and don't let it come out and be seen in the streets. But you know what? We as believers need to take our faith, and we need to let our faith be on display through our works of kindness, through our works of speaking out against the slaughter of unborn babies. We need to let our faith be spoken out and acted out in our love towards the homosexuals. Not our acceptance of them, but our love towards them. And by the way, that's a big difference. What the world needs now, it's not love, sweet love. What the world needs now is believers to rise up in their faith and show the world their faith by their works, by what they do. I hope that you take that message to heart. Now, verse number 26, it says, "For just as the body without the spirit is dead, so also faith without works is dead." What's James telling us? Just like the body. You know, if you were to take your spirit and take your spirit out of your body, you know what's going to happen? Your body is dead. There is no life left in your body. You see, life is not something that's physical. Life is something that's spiritual. Life comes because there is a spirit on the inside of you. That unborn baby, you know what? That unborn baby has a spirit on the inside of them, placed there by God at conception. And that's why it's murder to kill an unborn baby. The body without the spirit is dead. And then James goes on and he uses that as an illustration. And he says, so also faith without works is dead. Now, we need to understand the concept of death. The concept of death is not that something ceases to exist. You know, I know that in our Western way of thinking, that a lot of people think that death is ceasing to exist. It's the end, but it's not the end. Death means separation. You see, when I someday go on to be with the Lord, my spirit is going to separate from my body. And you know what? They're going to call that death. Now, of course, if Jesus returns, my spirit is going to go and be changed. My spirit's going to come up into a changed, resurrected body. There will be no separation, and therefore there is no death for me. But if the Jesus tarries and I separate, my spirit separates from my body, you know what that's called? Death. So understand that death is not the ceasing to exist. Death is separation. So James says that faith without works is dead. What does that mean? That faith without works, it's a separation of the two. Now, we've already talked about how faith and works together actually brings about the completion of faith. It completes faith. So you need both faith and works together. When people see your faith by your works, you know what? You're giving them evidence. You're giving them substance. You're giving them something that they can believe in. But if all they do is hear about your faith, or if all they do is see you striving with religious works, you know what? Neither one of those things are going to bring them into a relationship with God. We, as believers, need to have faith and works together. We cannot separate the two. They have to be working in unison with each other. The world needs to see Jesus, and the world's going to see Jesus in you and in me. They're going to see Jesus, our faith in Jesus, by our works. So I challenge you today, as we end this podcast, make sure that the world sees Jesus in you. Now, until we speak to you again tomorrow, our prayer is that God will bless you abundantly.